Hi guys, I'm Shmee and I'm back in England, so back with the GT8. I've left my LT over in Germany and the GT8 has just been brought back actually from Antonmartinh in Edinburgh, who have been looking after it for me recently, and a big thanks also goes to Tony from Turbo Transport, who's brought it down to London. But what I wanted to do today was go over a little bit the Q&A I did a few days ago. So I put out a picture on Instagram, asked you guys for lots of questions. There have been thousands upon thousands, so I apologise if I'm not necessarily able to cover every single topic, but today I want to do a bit of a Q&A, pick out some of them and give you some answers to the things, or the most popular things that you're interested in knowing. Now before I do so, I'm going to jump in the GT8 in a moment because the weather is, well, slightly drizzling on and off, but you might be wondering why on top of my picnic bench of a rear wing is a laptop. Well, I've had a few problems recently with my previous laptops that I've been using, and a lot of you guys suggested that I should look into the Razor. So this is a Razor blade. We reached out to the company and they have very kindly hooked me up with this unit to try out and give it a go, and I can happily say that it is editing my videos very efficiently and very quickly, which means at the moment I'm not having to wake up in the middle of the night after the render has taken 3 or 4 hours to actually upload them. So a big thanks to them to give me this to have a little go with. But like I say, I'm going to take that with me, jump inside the car in a second, and let's run over some of these questions, some of the things you guys would like to know. I've picked out a selection of the more popular questions, the ones that come up the most, or some that were just interesting to me. So let's whistle stop through this list that I've got in front of me. And first up, Dara Atkinson asked, if you had to replace the McLaren, what would take its place? Now, away from the camera, I just had a private day with pure McLaren at Spa, where I enjoyed Spa circuit, Spa-Francorchamps, for probably about 40 laps, and I am so obsessed with the 675 LT. That car just has to be a keeper as long as I possibly can, because I've been through this evolution of the 12C, the 650S, the 675 LT, the 675 LT Spider. The 12C was my first ever supercar, so I'm so attached to that platform, to the P11 chassis, that I don't think I can ever specifically replace that car, certainly not at this stage. We'll see what happens. I'm going to talk more about 720S shortly, so stay tuned for that. At gtslord asked me quite an interesting one. What's your annual budget for fuel and tyres? Now, I'm probably doing about 50,000 miles a year between my cars, plus a further 20,000 a year in other cars, other test cars that I'm driving. So naturally, that's quite a lot of mileage and obviously comes with quite a high fuel budget. If I was doing this privately, it wouldn't necessarily make sense, but obviously I have the side thing that I'm also making all this content, so it's justifiable with the road trips and adventures. Now, tyres actually last a decent amount of time if you look after them. If you take cars like an LT to Spa and you do quite a few laps like I did, you get through a set of tyres in a day. And I can tell you that Trofeo-R's are not the cheapest tyre in the world. Obviously, I also have second sets of tyres for things. So the FF has winters and summers, the Focus RS has winters and summers, the LT has all-purpose and track tyres, and I've got a nice stack of those in my garage that you've seen before. But gtslord also asked, what's your favourite tyre brand? And now this is where I jump around a little bit between different cars. I tend to use the brand that the car is suited to. So the GT8 has Michelin Sport Cup 2s, the Focus RS has Michelin Pilot Super Sports, the FF has Pirelli P0s and Slotto Zeros in winter, the LT has Pirelli P0 again for summer, and Trofeo-R for track. So different tyres. Then you also have all sorts of other brands, you know, Dunlop, Goodyear, Avon, Hankook. There are loads of brands. So jump around a little bit and see different things. Then we'll move on to georgiou.panagiotis. I apologise for the pronunciation. What's the worst car you have ever driven? Now, there are a few people who ask this. What's the worst car I've ever driven? And there's one that stands out. So you might remember in all of my trips to Scotland, I've said before that I sometimes hire a car when I'm up there. The worst car I ever hired was a Kadjar, a Renault Kadjar. It was massively underpowered. It must have been the complete base spec version of the Kadjar, and it's quite big and quite heavy. And it just had no go at all. It was soulless, characterless, and I did not gel with it. I only had it obviously for a day or two. But that was my worst, I think, in recent times. Then, carlesmengual asked me, what do you think of electric supercars? So I filmed a video at Paul Ricard with the Neo EP9, which is probably up at the very top end of full electric supercars at the moment. There's a new generation. We're seeing and expecting to see at the Frankfurt Motorshow quite a few new electric cars. And of course, all these countries around the world now are introducing things for the future where vehicles have to go hybrid or have to go electric. We had the hybrid hypercar trio of the P1, the LaFerrari, the 918, which introduced and gave us an insight into what this could be. Now we've got the Valkyrie and the Mercedes Project One coming, which take it on, I suppose, to the next step. What I think of the future is it's inevitable, and it's about making sure that it's done in a way that we enjoy it as much as possible, that the driving experience is still there, but that's been shown it can be done. It's going to be interesting to see what those two particular do achieve and what other brands do to follow suit, what McLaren do, what Ferrari do in that industry. So it's definitely the future. The Neo EP9, it set a Nürburgring record just over 7 minutes. It's fast. Technology, electric technology can work. So bring on the future is what I say. Then I've got a question from stevenklaaseens. Are you going to buy a proper classic car in the future? With proper, I mean 60s, 70s and 80s. And with this, I will refer to my recent departure of the Mini from my garage that I failed to keep running as hard as I tried because they need love, maintenance and care and demand that you drive them regularly. And I wasn't able to achieve that with the Mini. So at the moment, especially not while I'm doing this dual thing between London and Frankfurt, I just couldn't keep a classic car running. So I'm not going to try at this stage. With all travel, you just can't do it. Then Stevensanderz asked me, this is quite interesting, what future plans do you have with your YouTube channel, and would you look at expanding your car collection even more or maintain the sort of cars you have at the moment? So there are two sides to this. What future plans do you have with the YouTube channel with Shmee 150? And I've talked a bit about this recently because doing this daily video thing is really hard wearing. It's been a very, very intense slog. I think pretty much actually since I started YouTube, I've averaged more than one video a day. So over 8 years now, it's quite a lot of content, and I've not actually missed a single day at all this year. So I'm definitely going to keep this year going, but I don't necessarily know what happens beyond that. And I think when Ben made the video with the RS3 sedan recently, I got an impression you guys quite enjoyed that. So I'd like to have Ben back making some more videos, maybe some other people as well. Maybe some of you guys come along and help make some content as well, and then we can have different strands of content, different knowledge, different stories, and I think that could be quite an interesting way to take this channel. We'll see. The next question was, the next part of that was about the car collection, and I've discovered recently that owning and running 6 cars is quite a headache. It's on the cusp of needing help to manage it in terms of insurance for all the cars, servicing for all the cars, tax for all the cars, keeping all the cars running, batteries, car washes. The logistics is much harder than it sounds, and I've done a fuel for thought on that topic, which you can see as well. But more cars means more stress. I would like cars like this, the GT8 and the LT, to almost be retired from daily usage, but still to be mine. I want to keep hold of them as long as I possibly can, and obviously as the car market is slowly kind of settling down a little bit now, it's cooling off, who knows what's going to happen, but unless I need to sell cars, I'm going to keep them. Some cars, like the Vanquish, it's on the way out, the FF, I don't think it's going to last too much longer with me, will move on, but then equally I'd like to buy some even more special and niche cars. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens over time, splitting between different countries. I don't really know yet. Then Lucas Wilhelmi 02 asked me, have you ever considered a tour through Scandinavia? Yes, very, very much. I did a gumball once through Sweden and Norway and Denmark. I've been to Denmark and Sweden each actually a few times. I really want to, and I'm planning a fuel faction in the future to go through Scandinavia, and that should be awesome. Then, at Malliewe, sorry, pronunciation fail, how are you going to manage your fleet being in 2 different countries? I don't really know yet. We will see. At the moment, the LT and Focus are in Europe, but I suspect they're both going to come back to the UK. The AMG GTR might spend a lot of time in Germany. The GT3 will obviously be in Germany. I think I'll try and find a daily driver in Germany, but that's where perhaps the FF becomes almost surplus to requirements, because in the UK I'll have the Focus RS or the Focus RS Edition when it comes, and the GT8 and the LT, and who knows what else. It's quite a lot of cars. Confusing. Anyway, we'll see what happens. So, next, carlesmengual asked, where will Shmee go in 3 years' time? 3 years in this space is an awfully long time, because 3 years ago, only a very small fraction of you guys were following this channel. It seems strange to say that. It's about 1,040,000 now, but I'd hazard a guess that 3 years ago it was about 300,000 maybe. So this is all escalating very, very quickly, and where that will be in 3 years' time, I don't entirely know. But the second part of his question was also about car events, places and trips that I'll do. And I think those are only going to get bigger and crazier, or at least that's my plan. Because dare I say it, back in the early days of this for me, driving from London to Monaco was a cool trip. But now it's more, let's go to Montenegro. Let's go to crazy places that I wouldn't have thought about before with cars that shouldn't go there. So it's evolving. Let's see. Now, lots and lots and lots and lots of questions about sticking with McLaren, buying a 720S, the future LT version of the 720S, and other future McLaren models. Now, I obviously have a big attraction to McLaren. They are my local car manufacturer, if you could call them that. Woking is about 20 miles from London, so it's the nearest supercar manufacturer to my home. The 12C was my first supercar. It's the only brand I've owned 4 cars from. It's the brand I've done the most miles in out of all the cars I've ever owned. So I feel quite attached to McLaren. So a 720S, I would like to think, is going to arrive in my garage in future. I have not ordered one yet. I haven't decided how it's going to sit. And obviously the LT and 720S, I don't want to sell the LT. They're very similar cars. And at the moment, I just wouldn't use one, to be completely honest. Maybe I'll look at a left-hand drive one on the continent. That's an option in future. But obviously when the LT version comes, which is going to be, what, another 3 years, another 4 years maybe? It's a long time away. Of course I'll be interested. I'll probably have done some disturbing amount of kilometers in my LT by the time that comes around. But we'll see. We'll see. You know, I'm always interested in what they're up to. I'm interested in what every brand is up to. But McLaren, I feel, is my closest connection because they're the cars I love driving the most. And the almost emotional connection to the brand that comes from the history, from the location, from following the Formula 1 races in the late noughties, Hamilton and Button. That was my era, so that's basically why. At kxrabo asked me, what was the hardest sale and easiest buy out of all the cars you've owned? And I was thinking about this one a little bit. The easiest buy, I can tell you immediately, that was my FF. I saw the spec at about 3 AM. I was talking to Paul from Supercars of London. He said, why don't you look at an FF? Opened up the classifieds, saw the blue and cream, called them at 9 AM the next morning, deal done. That was the easiest buy. The hardest sale, actually, was probably, if you go back, my V8 Vantage Roadster, my first Aston, because it was my first serious sports car. I had the Audi S5 before, but the V8 Vantage was a step on ahead of that. I owned it for about 2 years, and when I sold it, at the time, I wanted to move into an R8, but I couldn't quite afford one at the time. I couldn't afford the change, so I went down to a Z4 for a few months before then going up to the R8. So I'd say that was the hardest sale, thinking back, but I've never, I guess, regretted. Actually, this is going to take me on to the next question. Philippos 3 Vas asked, is there any car you regret buying? I would say I've never regretted buying a car. Every car I've bought has been the car that I wanted at that time. With hindsight, you might change things, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. At the time, you thought you wanted that car. I think maybe there are cars I could have bought that I haven't bought, but I don't regret any of the cars that I've owned and featured on this channel, so nothing missing from there. We've had a few questions about the Frankfurt Motorshow, the IAA, which is of course coming straight after this. There'll be plenty of videos of the new cars, the stuff you already know about, so the Mercedes-AMG Project 1, the Ferrari Portofino, the new Bentley Continental GT. There'll be some of the tuner stuff, some more supercar stuff, and some other guys are going to come out and help me make some videos too, so watch this space. Lots of people wanted to know about that. I'm going to be there on the press days as usual at the media previews, but not there. I don't expect to be there on the public days, but we'll see. Maybe I'll change, and if I do, follow my Instagram, I'll let you know there. So, this is another interesting question from leoreguric. Asked me, what is the biggest challenge in creating daily content, and how do you manage to rest doing so? The biggest challenge is the number of hours in the day, and how do you manage to rest? You don't. This is all day, every day. And you guys, I've said it before, you don't see the flights and the travel between events. And of course, I want to find time to be with my family, personal time, this kind of thing. It's very hard to squeeze it in, and that's one of the reasons why I'm looking at what changes in the future. It's very fun. I love everything. I love every single moment, every opportunity, every experience that I'm sharing with you guys, but it is very hard behind the scenes, and we do other things. I've talked a little bit about it before, but we do with the whole team. We do other things across social media, working with brands and marketing, so it's a little bit more complex even than just running the videos, which means it's a 16-hour job, 7 days a week, if you can call it that. Then fastsocs asked me, we have seen the video where you explain the reason behind the name Shmee 150. What we'd like to know is if you could start again from the beginning, knowing how big this was going to become, would you have chosen a different name? And if so, have there ever been any thoughts about what that might be? Now, this is quite interesting because when I started, I really, really wished I had picked a name that resembled automotive, so Autocar or Top Gear, something that had a car connection. I didn't, and you couldn't change your YouTube channel. You'll notice people have completely different channel URLs sometimes to what they call themselves because they've changed it over time. So I figured I was going to be stuck, if you could call it that, with Shmee 150 forever. But I quite like it, and I think you guys do too. The nickname Shmee is a bit of fun. Most of you guys, when you see me on the street, call me Shmee, which is completely cool. Obviously, Tim is my real name, but it's a thing, isn't it? It's different. Everybody asks, why Shmee? What is Shmee? Why did you pick Shmee? Well, it just came about when I was a youngster, and it's still here a week or two before I turn 30 years old, believe it or not, which is kind of crazy. Next question from Brian Lloyd Photography. What drive or drives still elude you? And there is one drive that still eludes me that I would love to tick off, and that is the McLaren F1. I think it's one of the very few cars. I've driven the Huayra BC, the Chiron, Koenigsegg Gira, P1s, LaFerraris, 918s, multiple of each. One thing I have never driven is an F1. I've driven older cars, F50, XJ220, but the F1 is the one at the top. It's the one I've never driven. So if anybody out there is watching and has an F1, which is quite unlikely, but if you do, I would love to fly anywhere in the world for a few minutes at the wheel of an F1. It would be a dream come true, and then I can end YouTube. I think what would be the point, right? It's done. Do you ever drive... from... I'm going to really struggle to pronounce this. Rykkleinhans. Do you ever drive one of your cars and think it's too fast? Yes, all of them. Even the Focus RS is too fast. The GT8 is a nice balance of not being too quick but still being very entertaining. The LT is way too fast, the FF is way too fast. But then you go on track and you exploit them to the fullest and enjoy them the most, and then it slightly makes a little bit more sense. But all of these road cars are just way too quick right now. That's become a thing. So another question, John Jordan 5228. You guys on YouTube make driving in Europe look easy, but having done myself, loads of mistakes happen. What are your stories, if any? So, lots of things going wrong on road trips, basically. Yes, they do. We've had punctures, we've had hotel mix-ups, we've had getting lost on the road, just things, you know, you forget things, you leave them in hotels. So, mistakes happen. I tend not to show them too often, but it can be a logistical nightmare. I've had many times where a plan has to change and I have to rebook a flight or a hotel with a minute's notice, or I'm at the airport and decide to fly somewhere different. That happens more often than it should. Question from RAV_B_. What is your biggest achievement in life? And to be completely honest, some of you guys hate it, clearly, but I think many of you love it. It has to be this. I think entertaining and informing so many people through my own love and passion for cars has to be something I would never have ever dreamt, even 6 or 7 years ago, that I would create this content that somewhere near 10 million people watch per month. And if you add up Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and Twitter together, it's millions and millions of people are following, which to me is quite humbling, and I really appreciate your support on it. But it feels like that's quite something, because you can't just go out and say, I want to do this. It's taken many years of a lot of work. So I think that has to be my biggest achievement. I hope you agree. Next question from Antonmartinh H. Where will the 87 TB plate go? So the 87 TB plate has come off the Mini. At the moment it's going on no new car. We've got SH66 MEE for the Ford GT because of the 1966 Le Mans victory. We've got SH67 MEE for the Mercedes-AMG GTR. 67 because AMG was founded in 1967. The GT3 is going to be registered on a German plate. That's a whole world of complication I'm trying to work out. So 87 TB will have to be reserved for something in the future. I don't know if it'll be a more special car, if it'll be another fun car, another older car, we will see, but it will be stored on what we call in the UK a retention certificate until then, so you can have it for 10 years and then you can renew it for another 10 years. So there's no rush. Let's see what happens. Now, last question I'm going to do for this Q&A comes from Craig JW1. Now, Craig JW1 is somebody I have a lot of banter with on Instagram quite regularly. Craig, I appreciate your comments, thank you. And Craig asked, how much longevity do you think is in YouTube? And now that you're fast approaching your 30s, how do you see things going in the next 10 years? And what are your life goals? So there are lots of levels to this question. First, how much longevity do you think is in YouTube? To be completely honest, YouTube is constantly changing. I've seen it go through, excuse me, different styles of content, different formats, and it's clearly going to change again. The more time that goes by, the more we learn, the more we see. I don't yet know what is the next level. I don't know if YouTube as a platform will continue to rise or if it will start to decline. I feel like it might even already be teetering on that edge. We're going to see in due course. Obviously, now that you're fast approaching your 30s, yes, I mentioned that before, getting there, nearly 30, on the 17th of September, which hence, if you've been following for a really long time, you'll remember my first number plate, S17, TJB, S17 for September 17th, TJB, my initials. How do I see things going in the next 10 years? Clearly, excuse me, losing my voice a bit. Clearly, it's evolving, it's changing. In 10 years' time, will I still be doing daily videos on YouTube? Almost certainly not. This is not going to be existing at that time. So time's going to tell. I expect for me, I'm going to evolve into other things off the back of this. Stuff still connected to cars, still connected to automotive, the industry in general, but we'll see. You have to see where it goes. I kind of live life 3 months at a time, not years ahead. So in terms of life goals, number one, keep having fun. It doesn't matter how well I think you're doing in terms of success. If you're enjoying what you're doing, that's number one. And I truly love this world, this YouTuber world of creating automotive supercar content. It's a dream come true. But that's the top thing for me, that I'm enjoying it, because if I'm enjoying it, hopefully that comes across on camera to you guys and you can join in with what I'm doing as well. So that's a sample of the questions for now. I'm sure I'll do another Q&A in due course, so watch this space for that in the future. But it's going to be time for me to take the GT8 out for a drive. In fact, let's just start it up, just because. Who doesn't love that, right? Amazing, amazing sound. But yeah, big thanks to Razer again for the Razer Blade laptop that I showed you at the beginning. There's a link down below. Go click that and check it out. Have a look if you're interested. Gaming laptop, but perfectly suited as well for my videos, because gaming and video editing use high-powered graphics cards. But a bit of a Q&A, bit of a casual chat, and there's going to be a lot more interesting stuff coming right up with the Frankfurt Motorshow that I'm excited to share as well. So thanks as always, guys, for watching. If I haven't been able to answer your questions so far, please do comment down below and I'll do my absolute best to reply to as many of you as possible, even though that can sometimes be a challenge. Anyway, I'll leave this one for there. Thanks again, and I'll catch up with you again very soon. Cheers.